With the final recommendations of the Royal Commission into the Black Saturday bushfires now released, community consultation is underway. The state government is organising community meetings across the state over the next week in a bid to gauge opinion on the Royal Commission's findings. ABC reporter Jane Cowan spoke exclusively to the Royal Commissioners Bernard Teague, McLeod and Susan Pascoe about their final report.
How would you characterise this report you've written? Do you see it as a tough report?
It could have been tougher, harder, and it's more likely then to have been disregarded on the basis it was just too extreme. It could have been much softer, and people would say, well, they've compromised because they wanted things that were easy to implement. I see it as being one of those reports that would be hard to ignore, because we've tried to ensure that we've dealt with things that matter for the future.
You've said that you aimed to make a report that made realistic recommendations. How constrained did you feel?
Look, I don't think we really felt constrained at all. We had a very wide term of reference, as you know, and I think it was in our nature as a commission that we wanted to make a difference. The cost is always a factor for government, and some of the matters that we dealt with could only be achieved with significant expenditure of public money, and we didn't regard ourselves as assuming the government would see the sky as the limit.
For you, what ultimately ruled out evacuation as the primary response for Australia?
I don't think I saw it in terms of there being a factor. I think it'd be too hard to try and even analyse my own response to that, because I think it presents it, if you like, as a black and white thing, that it's either you have the old situation which focuses on making this binary choice, or you switch over to a total evacuation process. There are immense problems in trying to implement a policy that's based upon evacuating it at all costs.
Looking at it in relation to the stay or go, we feel that you need to distinguish between a regular bushfire and one of these ferocious fires, bearing in mind that they are largely predictable. And indeed, if people recall, in the week preceding the 7th of February, the Premier and others got out there and really did try to alert people to the dangers that they were facing on the Saturday. People were reminded that it was going to be conditions like Ash Wednesday, and that's in living memory. People were reminded to enact their bushfire safety plans and so on. But I think not everybody really heard the message. That's one aspect, and another aspect is we now know from more recent research conducted by the Office of the Emergency Services Commissioner that nearly 3/4 of the population still want to have a wait-and-see approach. So clearly the way forward has got to take account of those people. It's got to take account of the extremely ferocious fires, but it's also got to take account of the fact that there are a lot of other bushfires where it would be safe to stay and defend if, the big proviso, you had adequately prepared.
We had to question the policy very critically. We had to examine why it was we felt so many people died, and that was one of the essential reasons why we examined each one of the deaths individually, so that we could build up an understanding of the different circumstances that those victims faced and why they died in the way they died.
You've debunked in the report one of the great myths of Black Saturday, that it was unprecedented, which is an idea that had been put forward to almost excuse some of the failures. Can I put to you another possible myth, that it was nothing to do with leadership? Do you subscribe to that idea?
Well, I take the view that it was to do with, that leadership was a factor, but it wasn't an all-important factor.
If you were living in the bush, what would you be doing in the next fire akin to Black Saturday?
Well, we do have a beach house that is on two sides, surrounded by state forest. We have decided as a family we would leave. Now, luckily for us, we're 100 metres from the beach, so it's not too difficult to find somewhere to go. But if it were a code red day, I would leave. I wouldn't think twice about it, and I would strongly urge other Victorians on a code red day, and particularly if they're in any proximity to bushland, they should leave.